Welcome and good afternoon. My name is Kiki Levy, and I'm the Administrative Specialist here at Temple Small Business Development Center. Temple SBDC, we definitely help businesses start and grow. We provide one-on-one counseling services as well as low to no cost webinars. If you're interested in connecting with one of our consultants, I will go ahead and put our email address here in the chat for you. Today, you have joined us for our WordPress website series. Your website is live now. What webinar? Today, we will send out a copy of the presentation. Just to let everyone know, you all have been muted, but we do encourage you to put any questions that you have in the Q&A. Please try not to put any questions in the chat. That way we can keep track and we don't miss your questions. Today, Barbara, she's joining us back for, what is this, session 3, the final session of the webinar, Barbara?
Yep.
Yeah. So, well, Barbara, I'm gonna let you take it away from here.
Okay. All right. So we made it to part 3 of this 3-part series on WordPress website design. So I wanted to dedicate this webinar to what we do after we launch our website, because there's a lot of work that goes into building our website. But once we launch it, that doesn't mean that the work stops. We actually have to get people to our website and make sure that they're seeing all the work that we put into it, and they're connecting with us, and they're buying our products, and they're purchasing our services. And we also need to worry about updates. Updates are a really important thing when it comes to WordPress websites, because we want to keep our site safe and secure. So that's what we're going to get into today. If you joined me for the past 2 sessions, this is what we learned. We learned how to set up a WordPress website. We installed themes and plugins. We gathered our assets, so all the content, images, any files that we wanted to put on our website. And then we designed our website. We went over how to use the Elementor page builder to design our site. And then we launched it. So now this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about how we keep our sites updated, the different ways to drive traffic to our website, and some different marketing features that are built into WordPress and the Elementor page builder, because there's a lot of really cool features. So the first thing we need to talk about are site updates. So site updates are updates to the WordPress core framework, so the actual WordPress core, what we're using to build our site. Then there's plugin updates. So things like Elementor needs to be updated. Any other plugins that you have to have installed on your site, those will need updates periodically. So we have to update those. And we'll also have to update our theme occasionally. Updates are important for a lot of reasons, but one of the biggest is security. We want to make sure our site stays secure. We don't want anything that could potentially cause malware to be injected, or viruses, stuff like that. Those things are bad. We don't want that to happen. And the best way to do that is to keep up with your updates. We also want to make sure our site is working well. So things change. The internet changes all the time, and software is constantly changing. So if we have an updated version of everything, then our site's going to work a lot better. It also helps our site be free of any bugs. So, there's tons of software out there, and sometimes they find problems, and there's bug fixes that are happening all the time. If you keep your site updated, those bug fixes will happen. If you let it lapse for a while, you're not going to get those fixes. And site updates give you new features. So WordPress is always updating, Elementor page builder is always updating, and they're adding things to your website. So if you update it, you get those cool new features. So what I recommend doing is logging into your WordPress site at least once a month and checking for new updates and making those updates at least once a month, because that will ensure that your site stays up to date and secure. it's very important that you make sure your site is backed up before doing any updates. So we talked about backups in the previous session. If you chose Known Host as the website host for your WordPress site, they do their own backups. And we also talked about WP Backup, which is a backup plugin for WordPress that will back up your site automatically on a schedule. So you always want to make sure that this is happening, that these backups are taking place, that you're getting saved versions of your website. And it should happen automatically for you, but it's always good before you hit that update button to make sure. Now, what's really cool about WP Backup is that they have the option to do this right in your WordPress dashboard. So if you go log into your dashboard and go to backups, you can see the log of all the backups that were taken. So you can make sure that it was run successfully before you go and hit the update button. So this is another reason why I really like this plugin. So to check for updates, when you log into your WordPress dashboard, you will see a button on the left-hand side that says updates. And if there's an update that needs to be made, there will be a little orange circle with a number in it, and that will indicate how many updates are needed on your site. So that's how you check. And once you click on that, it will take you to where you go to make those updates. And basically all you have to do is select whatever it is that needs to be updated and hit update plugins, and it will go through automatically. So it's really easy to make these updates. After you update your site, what I recommend doing is just going to the front end and making sure that everything looks the way you expect it to look. Test your pages, test anything that could maybe potentially be a problem, and just make sure it's all working the way it should. Another thing that I like to do is test my contact form. So I just fill it out and send myself an email and make sure it goes through, because that's one of the most important things on a website is the ability for people to contact you. So you want to make sure that that's working. So I always like to do that after I make any updates. And 9 times out of 10, things work totally fine. But it's always when you don't have a backup taken that something will go wrong. So that's why I really stress making sure that you have things backed up, because if something does go wrong, you can restore it and fix the problem. Okay, so now that we talked about updates, how do we get people to our site? Because obviously we want people visiting our site and buying from us. So we're going to talk about some online marketing strategies, and things that we're going to get into today are social media marketing, ads, so buying ads like Google, Facebook, or Instagram, search engine optimization or SEO, email marketing, and content marketing, which is my personal favorite because it encompasses a lot of these other strategies. So social media marketing. I'm sure we're all familiar with social media. It's creating profiles for your business on these different platforms. Those platforms really are dependent on where your audience is. So there's a lot of advice saying that you should be on every social media platform and saturate the market and get your message out there. I did that. I followed that advice when I first started Wiki Design. And what ended up happening was I got totally burned out on social media really quickly. So what I recommend doing instead is focusing on 1 or 2 platforms that you enjoy and that actually have your audience in them, because my audience is not on TikTok. There's no reason for me to start a TikTok channel, but the ones I focus on are LinkedIn and YouTube. I don't have anything else. I used to have a bunch of other ones. I got rid of them because they weren't useful to me. Those are the 2 that I focus on now, and my business is doing just fine. I get a lot of leads from both YouTube and LinkedIn. So I recommend that approach, because when you focus on 1 or 2, you're going to be able to post more relevant content, and you're going to be able to post consistently, which is really the key to social media. And with social media, you definitely want to engage with your audience. So if people are leaving comments, reply to those comments, start a conversation. Don't just, what I like to call, post and ghost. So post something and then never look at it again, because people really do want the interaction. So some helpful tools if you are doing social media marketing. Buffer is a social media scheduler. I use this to schedule out my LinkedIn posts. It's really useful because you can spend an hour once a week to schedule out things versus having to log in every day and do it the manual way. So I like Buffer for that. Planoly, if you're using Instagram, is a nice Instagram scheduler. It's very visual, so you can see all the posts in a grid on your Instagram and kind of figure out what you want to post on what day. It's a really good one. And TubeBuddy, if you're using YouTube for video, you can get some information like regarding keywords and stuff through TubeBuddy. So those are 3 that I recommend as helpful tools for social media marketing. Now we're going to talk about paid advertising. So paid advertising can be a little tricky, but it can also be very effective. I do recommend really doing research and figuring out where your audience is and kind of how they use the different platforms. So if your audience is on Facebook or Instagram, that might be a good place to do an ad. If you're getting a lot of traffic directly from Google, Google might be a better place to do an ad. Just do some research and figure out where your audience lives and what would be most effective. You definitely need to set a realistic budget for paid advertising because it can get kind of pricey if you don't set these things up. You're probably not going to get tons of results if you have a budget of $100. But if you don't have any budget and you just keep throwing money at it, that's not realistic either. You're going to waste a lot of money. You want to make sure that you have a realistic budget for your advertisement so you can get the most for your money. And definitely have a strategy in place. So where are people going to go when they click on your ad? Is it just going to be your homepage, or is it going to be a specific page just for that ad? Will you offer any special discounts or promotions if people click on that ad? That's something that you want to think about as well. And definitely track your results. So you can use Google Analytics to track results or hits to your website, but you can also use tools that are built into like Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Google to track how the ad did. And then you can kind of gauge from there how effective it was. So some pros of paid advertising are that it can really be highly effective because you can target really specific people. So you can get really down to the nitty gritty as far as targeting, especially on Facebook and Instagram, because they have a ton of data just from how people use the platforms, and you can really figure out the exact person that you want your ad to go to. There's also a lot of different options, whereas some more traditional advertising firms, there's not that many options available. With these online platforms, you can really do a ton of different things. And you can track your results, which is nice. If you sent like a mailer in the mail, you don't really know if people actually opened that mailer. You can get an idea of how many people you sent it to, but you don't actually know what they're doing with it. But with these online advertising platforms, you can really see if people clicked on it, where they went, all that stuff. So there's a lot of good pros to paid advertising, but some of the cons are that it can get very expensive, and whoever pays the most is who's going to get seen. So if you are running an ad and your competitor is running an ad and they have a higher budget than you, their ad's going to get seen before yours. So that's something that you have to think about. It can also be pretty confusing to set up. That's why I do recommend doing some research on it before you just jump into it, because you don't want to waste money on something that's not going to work. And if you're not setting it up correctly, conversions can be low. There's also some issues with credibility with fake ads. So I'm sure we've heard all about that kind of stuff with fake news and fake advertisements. And this can cause people to kind of be a little scared about what they're seeing on advertisements. But for the most part, I think that the pros really do outweigh the cons when it comes to paid advertising. So if you want to go into Google Ads, you can go to ads.google.com and set your account up there. They do have people that can kind of walk you through the process, which is nice. But this is where you would set up any ads. Like if you Google something and you see the link that says ad, this is where you go to do that. Facebook and Instagram are the same. If you didn't know that, Facebook and Instagram is the same company. And you can do both Facebook and Instagram ads through the Facebook for Business platform. And I put a link to that as well. Okay, so now let's talk about search engine optimization, or SEO. So search engine optimization is the process of increasing traffic to our website through search engine results. Google is king. Really, none of the other search engines matter. Google is the one that everybody uses. And it has evolved greatly over the years. So a lot of the techniques that might have worked 5 years ago, 10 years ago, it's completely different now. It is so sophisticated, and really Google changes their algorithm like every day. And nobody really knows how it all works. Even people that work at Google don't know exactly how it works, because there's so many different teams and people working on different things. So they don't really communicate with each other. I think that's intentional. But it has definitely changed. The way we do things as far as SEO has changed a lot. So this is how to rank in Google in 2021. It's not the same as it used to be. These are the things that if you go onto Google platform, you listen to interviews with people that work at Google. These are the things that they're saying matters as far as ranking in Google. They really do care about the design of your website. If your website is a mess and there's stuff all over the place and people don't know how to use it, that's going to affect your SEO. Google has AI technology that scans your website now. So literally robots are scanning your website, and they take the design into consideration. So it really does matter. Also, your branding matters, because they're not just taking into account your actual website, but they're taking into account any links that are coming in. So if you have links on different podcasts or different news sources, stuff like that, that's going to help your SEO. SSL is another important factor, and we talked about that in the first webinar. SSL means that your URL starts with HTTPS, a secure URL, versus HTTP, and you also have that little lock icon in your browser. They want that. They want websites to be secure. If you don't have that, they will ding you in search rankings. They also want a really good mobile experience. They do mobile indexing first. They don't focus as much on the desktop because more people are on their phones. So if your website doesn't work well on a mobile device, they will ding you in rankings. They also want your website to be fast loading. So slow websites get penalized. And they want you to create useful content for your audience, which is why I think content marketing is so important. The more useful content that you have on your website, the better, because Google is going to consider you an authority on a specific subject. If you want more SEO resources, I recommend going to the Google Search Central YouTube channel. The reason I recommend this is because it's coming from Google. So they know the latest and greatest information. So I definitely recommend checking that out if you want more information. Also, you can check out John Mueller, who is the search advocate at Google. He has a pretty popular Twitter account where he answers people's questions, and he goes on a lot of podcasts and does interviews and talks about SEO. He gives a lot of really good information. And again, he works at Google, so he knows the latest and greatest. And if you want a good podcast related to SEO, Search Engine Journal Show is a good one to check out. So now let's talk about email marketing. Email marketing is very effective. I think it's one of the most effective ways to market online because people check their email all the time. They might not go to your website every day, but most people check their email at least once a day. I know I check mine multiple times a day. So if you can get in front of your audience via email, it will be very effective. And it helps build a relationship with leads and past customers. So you send them an email with promotions and they'll maybe buy again. a great thing about email marketing is it can be personalized. So you can target emails to specific people that maybe bought a specific service or a specific product from you. And emails can be automated. So you can set up things on your website that capture email addresses, and then you can create automated campaigns around those opt-ins. So it's really effective, as a form of advertising online. Some of the popular email marketing CRMs are MailChimp, MailerLite, Constant Contact, ConvertKit, just to name a few. These are all part of Elementor's integrations as well. So we talked about that a little bit in the last webinar, that there's some built-in integrations. These all come as part of Elementor's integration. So if you're using one of these four, you can connect your website to your CRM very easily. So there's a ton of different ones out there. I have personally used MailChimp and MailerLite. I like MailerLite. That's what we use at Wiki Design. And what's really nice about it is it's free to start out. So if you don't have a big budget, but you still want to get started with email marketing, you can set up a free account and do a lot with it and really kind of get a feel for how email marketing works. And then once you grow your list, you can have a budget to take that to the next level. Okay, so let's talk about content marketing, where I mentioned that this is my favorite form of online marketing because it kind of encompasses everything that we talked about in a way. So content marketing is creating, publishing, or distributing content for a specific audience. So that content can be a lot of different things. It can be an email newsletter, it can be a video, a podcast, a blog post, a webinar. Tons of different things are considered content marketing. Content marketing is educational, not promotional. So this isn't running ads. This is educating people, sharing your knowledge and your expertise with a community. And by doing this, if you do it consistently, it will establish you as an expert, and people will come to you when they have problems or questions that they need help with. So some forms of content marketing are blog posts, podcasts, videos, ebooks, webinars, just to name a few, but there's a ton of different things that you can do as far as content marketing is concerned. I think content marketing really works well because it does help with SEO. So we did mention that Google wants you to publish relevant content for your audience. So if you're publishing that content, that means that they're going to consider you an authority on that subject. It also helps with social media. So if you are doing social media marketing, one of the hardest things about it is figuring out what to post. But if you can take the content that you've created and share it on social media, then that work is done for you. It also shows credibility. When you provide valuable information to your customers, it shows that you know what you're talking about. So it really is effective in that way. And it continues to build over time. So you might have a post that you wrote a year ago that still gets tons of traffic. One example that I like is years and years ago, it's probably going on 4 years now. We wrote a post on our website about connecting your Gmail account to your custom domain, and that is still our #1 post on our website. So that continues to bring us thousands of hits every month. So we're getting traffic from something that we wrote years ago. So it will build over time. So now let's get into some of the marketing features that are built into our website. Because we designed this awesome website, let's talk about some of the things that we can do to market it. So I'm going to go to my WordPress dashboard. And the first thing that I want to show you is under posts. So one really cool thing about WordPress is that we can schedule our blog posts out. So if we write a bunch of posts at once, we don't necessarily want to publish them all on the same day, but with WordPress, we can schedule them. So if we go to posts and then add new, it will pull up our editor. Now over here, under where it says publish, and it says immediately, we can change that and a calendar will pull up. And if I change this to publish next week, you see how it now says schedule? So I can write a post and then schedule it to go out on a specific date. This is really nice for keeping things consistent. So I really like this feature that's built into WordPress, because I like to sometimes batch my editing, batch my blog writing and stuff like that. So it just makes things a lot easier. So that's the first thing that I wanted to talk about. The next thing I want to talk about is Yoast. So we install the Yoast SEO plugin on our site. So when you install Yoast, this is what shows up, this Yoast SEO settings. And these are for on-page SEO settings. So this is just a small part of the overall SEO picture, but this is something that we can add to our posts and our pages. So you can put in your focus key phrase, and it will give you a preview of how it actually looks in Google. So you can do that, and then you can put in your meta description, your slug. And if you have Yoast Pro, you can do some more things like the social settings and stuff like that. The free version, you can just do this, but this works pretty well. So if you have Yoast installed, I definitely recommend going through and doing this. It kind of gives you a little grade. Don't pay too much attention to the grade. Yoast has actually come out and said that like the grades aren't always accurate. But just try to enter in keywords and optimize your page as much as possible. The next thing that I want to talk about are the CRM integration. So we did mention this before in the last video where we went in to the Elementor settings and we put in our API key for different CRMs. So I want to talk about how that actually can work. So let me pull up the contact form that I've created on this site. So this just looks like a regular contact form, and it basically is. But one really cool thing about Elementor is that you can use these contact forms to capture emails. So in order to do that, we have to just set up a couple of settings. So if I go to edit on this form, if we scroll down to where it says actions after submit, we can actually say to email us. So when people fill out the form, it will send us an email, but we can also integrate the CRM. So there's a bunch of different ones available. I have MailChimp selected because that is what I've put on as my integration, but you can see if you hit that plus sign that there's all these different ones in here. So once we have that set up, you'll see that there's this MailChimp drop down here. If we click on that, this is where we link up our list. So we can link up, and you see all the lists from my MailChimp account in here. So you can pick whatever list that you want. You can have it go as a double opt-in. So what that means is that if somebody is signing up, it will give them a notification saying, hey, did you really want to sign up for the list? That's something that MailChimp does. And then you can map all your fields in here. So the email field will go to email, and then we can do first name as first name and last name as last name. Phone number, we can do phone. So what this is doing is it's saying anything that's filled in here, it will map into MailChimp. So when we hit submit, those fields will get imported into our MailChimp system. So that's how this all works. Now, this is really cool because we can do a lot of really great things in terms of marketing. So let me show you an example of a site that we've used this for. So if we scroll down here, you can say, see this meeting planner resources. So if you just put in your name and email and you click sign up, this is going to go into their CRM, and then they're going to start giving meeting planners resources. So this is just one of the ways that you can use Elementor to create a form that is actually an opt-in. So contact forms don't have to be contact forms. They can actually be used in this way. So this is one of my favorite features about Elementor, is that they have this in there, because the forms that you get with MailChimp or some of the other CRMs, they don't really look nice. They're not branded to have our colors and our fonts and stuff, but you can design all of these things now in Elementor and make it look seamless with the rest of our website. So I really love this feature about Elementor, and I use this personally and on my website, and it works really well. So definitely recommend taking advantage of this feature. The next thing that I want to talk about is another really cool feature that's built into Elementor, and that is the pop-up feature. So you've probably gone to websites and you've seen something like this. This is an example of one of the sites that we've done this for. It says, get 10% off by joining our email list. Well, this is a pop-up. So Elementor actually has a pop-up template feature built in. So you don't have to install any additional plugins or anything like that. It's really easy to use. It uses the Elementor builder, and we can create as many pop-ups as we want. So I want to show you how to do that. So I'm going to go into my WordPress dashboard. We'll get out of here. What we're going to do is go to templates and then pop-ups. And this is where we can create pop-up templates. So we hit add a new pop-up, you can see it automatically has the type of template as a pop-up, and we can name this whatever we want. So I'm just going to call this test for the example, and then we can hit create template. And we learned last week that Elementor has a bunch of pre-designed templates for us. So we can use one of these templates if we want to, or we can design one completely from scratch. It's totally up to what you want to do and how deep you want to get into the design of your site. But there's a ton of different things available. I'm just going to pick one of these just to show you how it works. So if I insert this into the site, you can see it looks like an actual pop-up window, but we have the ability to go in and change all of this. So we can change the text, we can change the image that is being used in the background, we can change colors, we can do a lot with this. And it's really nice because this is all just using the builder, so you don't have to learn anything new by installing a different plugin. It's just built into Elementor. Now, one of the really great features about this are the additional settings that we can have for the pop-up. So depending on how we want it to display, we can kind of customize things accordingly. So if we go and hit publish on this, there's all these different conditions, triggers, and rules that we can set up. And this is really cool stuff. So we can add a condition that says show this on the entire site, or we can say show it on archived or singular pages. If it's a singular page, what that means is that we can just select a certain page to show it on. So we can say, I just want it on the home page, which would be the front page, or I just want it on posts, or I just want it in a category. So we have the control over where we have our pop-up display. We also can set up different triggers, which is really cool. So we can do this on page load. If we do that, we can say, I want the pop-up to display immediately, or I can say I want it to display after 10 seconds. So we have the ability to do that. Also, we can do it on scroll. So if people are scrolling down the page, we can say once it gets to a certain point on the page, then show it. We can have it on a scroll to an element. So if there's a specific part of the website that we want the pop-up to display, we can do that. We can do it on click. So if we want something to trigger the pop-up when we click on it, we can set that up here. We can also do it after inactivity. So if you've ever gone to a site and you kind of look away for a little bit, you don't do anything, you're not moving the mouse around, sometimes a pop-up will show. This is how you would control that. So we can set that up and say, like, after 30 seconds or a minute, pop something up. We also can do it on page exit intent. So this is kind of fun because if I went to my site and I went to go hit X out the browser, the pop-up would then trigger and say, hey, before you go, make sure you do whatever. There's also some more advanced rules for the pop-up. So this really gets into detail. After page views, after sessions, you can show the pop-up only a certain amount of times. you can do it when arriving from a specific URL. This is my favorite one because if you're running an ad, so we talked about like Google and Facebook ads, you can actually set up the pop-up to trigger if somebody comes from that specific URL. So this is really cool for marketing because you can really track where people are coming from. And then you can say, again, show where when arriving from. So if you want people to see a pop-up when they arrive from your LinkedIn or your Facebook, you can do that. Hide for logged in users. That's kind of nice if you're editing and you don't want to continuously see the pop-up. You can click that on, and then it will give you even options for all users, or if you want it for custom, you can say only hide it for like the admins and stuff. You can also have it show on specific devices. So if you don't want your pop-up window to show on mobile phones, you can check that as well. This is a lot of really cool things that are just built into Elementor when you get the Pro version. You can also have it show only on specific browsers. So you can say all browsers, or you can customize that to say don't show it on Firefox, for example. So these are all just some settings that I wanted to go over regarding pop-ups. I think this is one of the most powerful tools that you can use in terms of marketing for your website, and it's all just built into Elementor. So it's one of the reasons that I really love using this page builder, because there's so many different features, not only for the design of your website, but also to really figure out ways to get people to the site. So that is it for this webinar. And I know you guys probably have some questions, so I'm just going to open it up for that.
Wow, that was fast, Barbara, but a lot of great information. Before we hop into the Q&A, I am going to post a quick 1-minute survey to our survey that we would like you all to take. In order for us to continue to do these webinars at no cost, our funders would like to know how well we're doing. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that in the chat for you. At this time, you guys can start flooding the Q&A and we'll start tackling these questions. Are you ready, Barbara?
I'm ready.
All right. So Laura would like to know, what do you mean by useful content marketing? Can you give an example for a preschool?
So for a preschool, it could be like a blog post on maybe different tools for learning, stuff like that. Like what are your favorite tools for helping children learn? Or it could be a video related to that subject, or something along those lines. Whatever it is that your customers are asking for, that's a good starting point. So if people are asking for certain things, or they have questions that you maybe get asked a lot, that's something that you could potentially turn into a piece of content.
Awesome. Sue would like to know, is content marketing similar to what we used to do with public relations?
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a public relations background, but I would say definitely you're just kind of getting your message out there.
Awesome. Sue would like to know, what's an API key? And where is the data that you're collecting from the Elementor contact form stored?
So if you have it where it collects submissions, it will store it on your WordPress database. The API key is something that you get from whatever CRM you're using. So for example, if you're using MailChimp, you can generate a MailChimp API key. And basically an API key just communicates with your website. So if you have an API key installed, if you set it up on your form, once you hit submit, it triggers that key, and it will make a call to MailChimp to say, store this information. That's the best way I can explain it.
Nice. Elizabeth, she would like to know, when I look at Google Analytics for my site built in WordPress, my homepage shows up as a /. Should I name my homepage in WordPress? What is a good way to name that page? Does this affect SEO?
Yes, your title definitely matters for SEO. So I would change that change that in either your Yoast settings or under the customizer. So go to appearance customizer and you can change it in there. That titles are one of the things that affects your on-page SEO the most. So I would definitely change it, and I would change it to try to include a keyword if you can. So I don't know what business you're in, but whatever like people are searching for, try to include that in the title. So like mine is wiki design, it's Philadelphia web designers.
It's a great response. Felicia would like to know, hello, Barbara, great class. And oh, she's just saying hello. Hello, Felicia.
I haven't talked to you in a while. It's good to hear from you.
All right, Sue, she would like to know, I find pop-ups so annoying. Do you know of research how people feel about pop-ups?
So they definitely can be annoying. I definitely don't like seeing pop-ups all the time, but they do work. The research shows that they do work, and just doing my own research for email opt-ins, when I had a pop-up, my number of email subscribers definitely increased. I think it's all in the design of it. You don't want to make anything that's super intrusive. Don't have pop-ups everywhere. And if you don't like it, you don't have to use it. You can do other things, but they definitely work, and that's why people use them.
All righty. Laura would like to know, what is an Elementor web host?
So Elementor is not a web host. Elementor is a page builder add-on for WordPress. Your web host is where you store all the files for your website. So we talked about known host in session 1. That's the host that I use. That's what I recommend if you need a web host. They're really great. But that's the host is where you store everything. Elementor is just an add-on for WordPress.
Awesome. And Laura, I am actually going to post a link to our YouTube channel in the chat, where you will find one of the first sessions of the WordPress webinar that Barbara did for us. And you'll be able to kind of go back and look as she explains like what Elementor is and like how to set it up on your WordPress page. It looks like those are all the questions.
Oh, you guys didn't have that many questions. I thought we'd have more.
Go ahead. Don't be shy.
Yeah,
Oh, it looks like we got one.
We got time.
You're welcome, Laura. We still have about 15 minutes, so go ahead, ask the questions, and I'm gonna go ahead and post these links in the chat for you all.
Do you have any questions about things that we talked about in previous webinars too? Ask those.
Looks like we just got something in the chat here. Okay, so Barbara, she would like to know more about Elementor. Barbara, I am going to post those links in the chat for you so you can watch those recordings. Will you also post? Yes, Bob. Yes, I will.
Yeah, they're on my YouTube channel as well. If you go to youtube.com/wikidesign, they're there too. So either one, you can get a replay of both webinars. And I will upload this one there too.
And Sue would like to know, here's a question from before. What's the difference between closed source and open source? Who owns the content?
Okay, so open source means that there is a lot of people contributing to the platform. So WordPress is an open source content management system, which means that there's tons of people working on the project. A closed source is like a Squarespace or a Wix, where you are kind of limited to what they offer, and that's it. As far as who owns the content, you don't actually get your files a lot of the times on these different platforms. Like I can't download a Squarespace website and put it on the WordPress platform. I would have to actually recreate everything. So that's kind of a disadvantage of some of those platforms. With WordPress, you own everything. You can take that website and put it on a different hosting platform if you choose to. If you need to scale up or scale down, you can do that. So that's one of the advantages of WordPress.
Awesome. Elizabeth would like to know, how does Google look at blog post dates? If I refresh and republish, will that satisfy Google for SEO? Do I need to refresh the content drastically?
So Google tends to look at the most recent information first. So just like anything, like they kind of consider like a news feed. Like if it's outdated, they might not consider it the most relevant information. That's not always the case though. But I would say if you want to refresh something and update it for like this year, if you wrote something a few years ago and you need to update it, go ahead and do that. You don't have to change it drastically. If you just need to update a few things and say, hey, this is my 2021 update and this is what's changed, go ahead and do it. It doesn't hurt anything. If anything, it makes your content more valuable because it's showing that you're going in and you're concerned about things being outdated. So I would definitely do that. I do that often.
Awesome. And just a quick pause, I did put those links to the YouTube channel in the chat. So if you want to see the WordPress recordings from the 6th and the 13th, those links are in the chat. So go ahead and grab those. Next question, Cindy would like to know, what's the difference between WordPress.com and WordPress.org?
So .com is the WordPress kind of like closed source solution. So consider WordPress.com to be like a Squarespace or a Wix where you're paying a monthly fee for this service. WordPress.org is where you would go to just download the core framework. So when you download the framework, then you can take that to your web host and install WordPress on your website. We didn't really talk about that because with known hosts, that's something if you need to install it, they'll do for you if you sign up for WordPress hosting. But on WordPress.org, they have like what they call their famous 5-minute install, and it walks you through the process. So if you do need to do that, you can go to WordPress.org, download it, and install it.
All right. Felicia, I think she has a question this time. How can I have events that are coming up next go to the top of my events page when the old events expires without me having to do it manually? Is there a plugin for this?
Yeah, there's tons of event plugins out there that can do some stuff like this. You can even set it up as like a calendar, like people can scroll through and see the most recent events. One I think is called the Events Manager. If you just Google like event plugin for WordPress, you'll get a ton of results. There's one specifically for Elementor that I like. It's called like ME Events. If you don't have Elementor installed though, Events plugin is a good one, and they have a lot of options as far as display, and you can do it in a calendar, a list format, a grid format. It's really good.
All righty. Sean would like to know, is there a best way to find sites in your industry that draw a lot of internet traffic for the purpose of getting ideas for your own site?
What I do is Google. Google's the best resource. There's a lot of tools out there for like keyword research and stuff. None of them are as accurate as just going to Google and typing in something. And then you can find out what is related to that topic. So what people are writing about, what your competitors may be writing about, and you can see if you can write something better or make a piece of content that's better. Another cool thing about using Google is using the suggested results. So when you Google something, at the bottom, it'll say people also search for, and it'll pull up those results. Those are things that you can use to get ideas. I do that all the time. So that's what I recommend doing.
Awesome. To Luann and Rob, if you both could post your questions in the Q&A, it'll be very helpful. That way we can answer questions in the order that they came in. Next question is from Sue. Is GoDaddy closed source?
No, GoDaddy is not a website platform. GoDaddy is where you buy your domain, or you can buy hosting from them. So yeah, that's just where you go to buy your domain.
All right. JT would like to know, I have several domains hosted at Award Space. Do I need to do a separate WP install for each domain?
Yes.
And Elizabeth would like to know, other than in content throughout the site, are there places I should be using keywords somewhere in the background or fields of my pages? Is this the same as tags?
Add alt tags to your images. That's a way you can put keywords in. That's another really powerful SEO tool because there's Google image search. So Google takes your alt tags and will determine what the image is in search results based on that. It's not the same as tags in WordPress. You can tag your posts in WordPress. It honestly doesn't really do much for SEO. So I wouldn't spend a ton of time on it. It's tags are more just for like organization.
Awesome. Rob would like to know, stuff changes all the time. Should we be reading/listening to a blog, podcast, or website for updates?
Those resources that I recommended, the Google YouTube channel, that's a good one. The Search Engine Journal podcast is another good one. You can even just go on to like Google's, they have like documentation and stuff regarding search. I think if you go to like Google Search Console, you can find information regarding it, and that will give you the most up-to-date information. But you're right, it does change all the time, and it's something that it's hard to get ahead of. It's just really the key is just posting consistently and just focusing more on your brand.
All righty. Luann would like to know, so Hello and Elementor Pro are in WordPress.com?
No, they are separate entities. You can download Elementor Pro at elementor.com and install it. You don't have to have WordPress.com to have these. We didn't go over WordPress.com. Everything that I did would be considered WordPress.org. Yeah, so once you install WordPress, you can just search in the theme repository for Elementor. It's a free theme, or for Hello by Elementor, rather, it's a free theme. You can install that, and then you can download Elementor Pro, the plugin, at elementor.com.
Awesome. And Luann, I just sent you the links to the first two WordPress website webinars. That way you can go back and review how Barbara actually explained how to download those two onto your WordPress page. Laura would like to know suggestions of keyword lists that work by industry.
Honestly, I would just think about what it is that people might be searching for in your industry. So like for my business, for example, we do web design. So people might be searching for web designer near me or site designer in Philadelphia. So those are the keywords that I try to target. I wouldn't use any of there's like a lot of tools like that will give you a list of relevant keywords and like search volumes and stuff, but they're not that accurate. Honestly, they're kind of a waste of money. I wouldn't spend money on them. I would just go to Google and that will give you the most accurate information.
All right, and last question, Elizabeth would like to know, well, she has two questions. Are these the main places for SEO keywords throughout content and image tags and the page name? Are there NY, maybe any other places we should focus on or that we may be missing?
Yeah, those are the main things for on page that, yeah, it's your title in, you know, a couple places in the headings and the content and your image tags. Honestly, on page SEO is just is a really small part of it. If you do that, that's good, but you really need to focus on the design of your website, making sure that the website loads fast, is mobile friendly. Those are the things that are more important.
How do one determine if a site is loading fast?
So let me put this link in here. You can go to Google PageSpeed Insights. That's the best tool I found for it because it's coming directly from Google. How do I put things in the chat?
What's the name of it?
It's, if you just, here, I can put it in the chat.
Okay.
I have it up. So if you go to this site and you put in your URL, it will give you a score. And then you can, it'll also tell you like things to focus on. 9 times out of 10, the problem is image size. So if your site's loading really slow, it's because you have really big images on your site, or you have a ton of plugins that are unnecessary. So if you can streamline things and optimize your images, that will help a lot.
All right. Elizabeth, she would also like to know, I have heard conflicting advice on length of content on pages that keeps things short, that keeping things short is good for users, but I've also heard that Google looks for length of content. Can you talk about this?
Yeah, so this is something that I think recently has changed. So it used to be keep it short, like 350 words, and then they went and like, no, make it long. So everybody was writing like these 5,000 word articles. Now I think it's going back the other way. My advice is to write as much as you want, as long as you answer the question. So whatever you're talking about, if you can get the point across in 300 words and that's good enough, then do it. If there's things that you could add, then add it. Whatever is the most valuable, that's what they're looking for. They want it to be valuable. So if there's something that you can answer up front immediately, answer it up front and immediately. Don't drag it on forever. Get to the point. But if you have to get into more detail, then get into more detail.
All right. And Cindy would like to know, am I correct that I cannot download WordPress or Elementor myself and create a practice website?
What do you mean by a practice? I mean, you can install Elementor on any website and WordPress on any website. If you're looking to just like practice and not want to do it on your main website, you can install like a staging environment, like basically a fake website that you can play around with and get a feel for it if that's what you're talking about. But yeah, you can install it on anything. So if you want to play around with something and you don't want to necessarily make changes to your main site at this time, that's what I would recommend doing. Just install something like on a staging environment. So like a subdomain, or if you just want to get like a dummy URL and do it that way, you can do it and play around with it. Yeah.
Okay. The second session that you did on the 13th, you kind of went over just how to like add and take away things on the WordPress site and what was it, demonstration mode or something like that?
Yeah, so I kind of just went through the process of how to use Elementor. I think what she's asking is if it had like if she can install it on like a testing server. And so I think that's what she means. So like she doesn't necessarily want to have the changes made and publish to her live site. And so yeah, she can install it in a testing environment.
Okay. It looks like she just made a comment. Me again, sorry, but even to play around, I have to pay for a host and domain first.
So do you already have a domain that's running WordPress?
Cindy, I'm gonna unmute you just so we can get clarification of what you are. If you
Okay,
unmute
so
yourself, you should be able to speak.
she said no.
Okay.
So if you don't already have a domain that uses WordPress, then yeah, you're gonna need to buy a domain and install WordPress. But if you already have something that has the WordPress platform, you can install a subdomain, and you won't have to buy a brand new domain. You can just install it on like a subdomain and install an instance of WordPress there and play around with it that way.
All right. Well, that looks like those are all of the questions. And I think we did that right on time. It's exactly 3 p.m.
All right. Okay,
So
good.
thank you so much, Barbara, for joining us today. That was a wonderful webinar. We hope to see you back soon. It sounds like people, they still have a lot of questions about the hows and of WordPress. So we look forward to having you back and working with you again in the future. To all of our attendees, thank you for joining us today. Again, a copy of today's PowerPoint along with the recording will be sent out to you. It will also be housed on Temple SBDC YouTube channel as well as Barbara's YouTube channel. So you can find it in multiple places. Again, if you haven't taken the survey, please feel free to go ahead and take that 1-minute survey in the chat. We value your feedback. We would love to know how well we're doing. And then in order for us to continue to provide these webinars to you at no cost, our funders want to hear from you. And then lastly, we do have a few other WordPress webinars coming up. They're more so in-house. One of our Temple teachers will be hosting a few WordPress webinars. So I just posted those links in the chat as well. So if you're interested in joining us for one of those, feel free to copy down those links. If you can't get in, then just send Temple SBDC an email and we will get you into one of those webinars. I guess that wraps it up, Barbara. Any last minute words? This is the final series here.
Yeah, thanks for joining me. If you guys did all three, I really appreciate you guys joining me, and hopefully you got some good information out of this. And if you need to talk further about anything, you can go to my website and fill out the contact form. I'd be happy to chat with any of you.
And then you do consultations as well, right, Barbara?
Yeah, you can sign up for a free consultation if you're looking to get some help with a website, or you need just have some questions that you want me to answer. Yeah, feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Someone just asked for the survey link again, so I'm getting that back in the chat for you. And yeah, well, we'll end it here. Thank you, Barbara.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.